Are you and your spouse living more like roommates than soulmates? I'm going to give you some keys to bringing more fun and closeness back into your relationship because we all needed it at one point or another in our marriages. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Kate Wood. I am a Christian life coach. I am a health coach, an emotional intelligence coach, an integrative somatic practitioner. I have 5 kids, 2 dogs, a wonderful husband. I've been married 21 years or so. And I love helping women overcome overwhelm, reduce their stress so they can live more authentic, full out lives. You know how important your marriage relationship is. If you get into a discussion or a fight with your spouse, the whole day feels off, doesn't it? You can't think straight, you're in a fog, everything seems off. And that's because it's such a pivotal relationship in our lives, right? And I think God created us that way for marriage to be a super meaningful relationship. And so when it's not going well, it can really throw us for a loop. You could look at the flip side and be like, you know what? It's a really good reminder to keep that relationship on track. It's worth the effort. And I know it is tempting when things aren't going well to isolate yourself, to block off, to withdraw. And I'm going to encourage you to consider not doing that because it doesn't help, does it? And so I'm going to encourage you to stay in the game. Get your mind in the game here. Let's recommit to like, hey, even though we've kind of hit the same roadblocks again and again, maybe there is something new and different that could really help us. And that's what I love to do as a coach, is to help women and by extension, their families and their marriages as well. Straight out the gate, I'm going to start with this. Make sure there's time in your relationship for you and your husband to talk on your own, to nurture your love relationship. You know what I mean? You need to have time for that. And I know we have 5 kids. We have gone through incredibly busy seasons like you have too, right? We really need to protect that time because marriage can get business-like really quickly. You take this kid here. I'm going to go to the grocery store. You do this. It's all logistics and there's not a lot of time for, a sweet hug or a cute Post-it note and all these different things. So I really want to encourage you to start to protect that time. And if you keep forgetting, right, or it just keeps falling through, I need you to put it in your calendar. It may sound like I shouldn't have to put it in my calendar to, express love to my spouse or to say kind words to them or go on a drive with them. Do it. Do whatever you need to do to make this stuff happen. I've heard of a couple who put a babysitter on retainer and they paid them in advance, even though they didn't have a lot of money to spare, because they knew if they had already paid, they would go on the date. Not a bad idea. Do what you need to do. Think outside of the box in order to make your time together as a couple happen. It's so important. Just to have that time where you're not interrupted by voices and opinions of all your children, or even our dogs get distracting, which is so silly, but they really do. We just need that time away where it's quiet and we know other ears aren't listening, where we can just talk. And it's one of my favorite things that we ever do. Sometimes it's just taking a drive and talking. Point 2, I dare you to think back to what attracted you to your spouse when you first met them. Because sometimes our brains go toward the negative. It's just how they're set up. So you will start to pick up and perhaps make a laundry list of things that you don't love about your spouse, the stuff that bugs you. But I need you to balance out that list with positive things. My husband is very decisive, and I really appreciated that about him even way back in high school when I met him. It's helpful to think back to those things and be like, I still really like that, right? We want to focus our minds on the truth and we want to be kind to them, just like we want them to think kindly about us and all our fabulous qualities. And I dare you to share it with your partner. Tell them, I love that you're decisive, or I love that you have so much confidence, or I love your goofy sense of humor that a lot of other people don't get, but I find hilarious. Tell them. Sometimes we forget to tell them how much we appreciate them. And it's important, especially if their love language is words of affirmation. Think about it. Do you love to hear that stuff? Right? They do too. I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking because they're a man that they don't need to hear these things, that they don't need a hug. They don't need these words of affirmation. They don't need to be appreciated. And that's so not true. Don't let that trip up your marriage, okay? Communication. Of course, we're going to talk about this, right? But I want to hit on one thing in particular. You can't expect your spouse to do something or know something if you never communicated. And I definitely made this mistake early in our marriage, and sometimes I still do. this expectation. They should know that I'm sad. They should know why I'm mad. They should know that I need this. Why? Did you say it? And I had to ask myself that too. I never communicated it. And I'm mad at them for not mind reading me. We can't expect other people to mind read us. I don't know if it's Hollywood or what that makes us think that they'll just know. They should know. Hogwash. Tell them. Tell them in a kind way, communicate it directly. I've walked into my husband's office. He works from home, so I didn't go into his workplace. And I said, I need a hug. Because there was no way on earth that he would know that the day I was having and that I needed just a hug, a quick hug. We need to communicate it with some confidence and open-hearted expectation. Not like, you never, me. Just go in with the second part, which would be, I could really use some time where we just talk. I have a lot on my mind and I would love to have 15 minutes where we could talk uninterrupted. You're allowed to say what you want and need. And the second part of that is to communicate it with clarity. And I know that can feel scary for some people, but I dare you to practice. Start with something small. Man, it would really help me out if you could grab some milk at the store when you're out. There's not a lot of emotion to it, but just some people need help practicing, even expressing the smallest need, and then we can work up to some of the bigger stuff, like I need some more emotional support. And here's another thing. Give them examples of what that would look like to you, because their idea of emotional support or whatever you're asking for, if it's not super specific, may look and feel very different to them than it does to you. So give them an example. When I'm having a stressful day, if you could just pat me on the back, or if you said this to me, it would be really helpful. Don't leave all the work to them, because they don't necessarily know what you need and want and how you want that expressed. So these are huge keys. I dare you, write this down, write it down and start to practice it. It will revolutionize your marriage, I promise. I am recording this right before Valentine's Day. I like Valentine's Day. Maybe it's because the winters are long in the Midwest and we need holidays to celebrate. I even get excited about Groundhog's Day. But often we give gifts or make a special meal or do these different things. And I find this happens around holidays, anniversaries, birthdays. We want something in return. We want to be celebrated in a certain way. So when we celebrate them, like we give them their Valentine gift, there's strings attached. Do you know what I mean? I just know from personal experience, I would give a gift, but I wanted something of equal, not even money, but thought or size or expression. That can lead to a lot of disappointment. If they just couldn't think of something great this year and you thought of something great and they don't seem to equal out, I need you to give freely. I'm thinking of Jesus here, giving freely, because he knew we couldn't pay him back, right? And so there's a different mindset, there's a different emotion when you give gifts or compliments or time with no strings attached, which is very different from letting people walk all over us and not setting boundaries. That's not what I'm talking about. My husband loves Italian ice, so I bought him some syrups. It sounds so weird for Valentine's Day. I'm giving them freely because I simply want to do it because I love him. It's a different mindset. But it is helpful because we can often get resentful. Here's the other thing too. My family sometimes gets puzzled about what to do with me for my birthday. Sometimes I will say, I would love to go here for dinner. Give them ideas, help them out. Because if you have this vision of what you want, they have no idea unless you tell them. I really packed this full, didn't I? And these are all things that are great to unpack with a coach. If you're like, man, I have a long history of this. I also have a group coaching program currently called the Mighty Hearted Community, which is an amazing place to get coaching and a very supportive and lovely community. So those are a couple ways if you're like, yeah, Kate, these are ideas, I can implement them, but I don't have any accountability, or I don't feel like I have support in this, or I care about my marriage, but I don't feel like my spouse does right now. These are all things that coaching are really helpful for. What I'm giving you today is a great starting point. Please act on them. Even one. Just communicating one thing that you want or need would be great. Giving your Valentine's gift with no strings attached. That would be another great place to start. So I want to give you starting points, but if you're like, Kate, stuff that's going on in my marriage or relationships are a lot deeper than this, it's going to take more than this. Okay, I ain't scared. There are solutions out there, and I have big hope for you and for what your life can be. So here's the last one, because I was like, this is a deep one. If you're holding on to past hurts, it's very challenging to move forward in your relationship. And I'm not saying to just ignore problems in your relationships, because that doesn't work. I would really encourage you to work on it. It's worth it. Like I said, such a pivotal relationship. We want to make sure that we're supporting it and giving it the best we got. Holding on to hurts holds us back. And honestly, it'll hurt your marriage, but it probably hurts you more than anyone else because you're the one thinking about it all the time. Your brain starts to go in a negative bent. If you're thinking, he always does this, he never did this, he hurt me so bad, you're going to look for the negatives. It's going to be very hard for you to look back and remember the positive things that you love about your spouse. It's going to be very challenging for your brain to look at the positive things that are happening right now and to recognize them and to dwell on those. So forgiveness it's huge. I want to encourage you to pray on it. Look into your heart. Am I holding on to unforgiveness? Is this something that we need to work on, maybe get coached on? Or is this something that we've worked through and the final piece is just me forgiving, releasing the strings attached and loving boldly again? So I hope that encourages you in your marriage, in your relationship. I want you to have an amazing, fun, tender, ha-cha-cha marriage. And I hope that this gives you an amazing start. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.